G'day everyone, and welcome to the first breakout session for EduDay 2022. My name is Troy. I am a learning delivery specialist from Microsoft Australia Education. I hope you're having a great holiday. I hope you're finding lots of time to rest and relax and keep your mind off work, except for today, of course. And I'm hoping that you're really enjoying this time. I also hope that you're keeping well, and I also hope that you're keeping safe. And I know that there's a lot of us that are now starting to come down with COVID, and I'm hoping that you're doing great if you are in fact one of those people. Our first session today that I'm doing is a beginner's session. Okay, so this is assuming that you are fairly new or brand new to Teams, and this is setting up your class Teams for success. So let's jump right in and start to have a play around with Teams and get you set up for 2022. Okay, so I am coming to you from my house. So if you hear my dogs and children and all that kind of thing, then you know that this is real and this is true. If you want to get today's slides, then you go to aka.ms/eduday setup. That's aka.ms/eduday setup. I want to remind you as well that you can use the chat or the Q&A for question and answers in real time. There are people that are actually going to be fielding your questions and responding to those as best they can. And we're also going to have a bit of a Q&A time at the end of our session as well. All right, so we're going to have a little bit of a Q&A time where you can actually put your questions and we'll go through. So throw them into the chat, throw them into the Q&A as we move along today. So thinking about Teams specifically for education, what I want to do before I get in and start building this demo and before I start showing exactly what it is that you're going to do, I just want to talk to you a little bit about Teams and just make sure that you understand what Teams is capable of and where we're all coming from at Microsoft. The thing about Teams I want you to remember is it's very much about the hybrid and blended learning. It's not just about remote learning. Hopefully most of us will not be going into any sort of remote learning anytime soon, but if we do, Teams is certainly going to be our solution. However, it is perfect and wonderful to be using in class as well. So a combination of that face-to-face as well as remote access. I want to share with you this slide here. It says it's an approach combining in-person and digital learning that builds on successful practices from remote learning to create learning-centered, personalized, inclusive, accessible, and engaging experiences. And that's what we can do with Teams. We can do all those things, right? So we can definitely help you not only with face-to-face, but also with your remote access. When you get these slides, there's a whole heap of information on them for you. Not all of them I'm going to sort of break down now, but I do want to sort of stress that we see Teams as being flexible, personalized, engaging, and inclusive. And there's lots of ways that we actually do that for you. Now, I want to talk about Teams and your LMS because, you know, from a Teams perspective, we are not in any way looking to displace your LMS. And in setting up your class team, I want you to remember to do your best to incorporate your LMS into your Teams experience. Now, some of the LMSs out there, for example, Canvas has a really good LTI integration with Teams, but for the rest of our LMSs, we can at least bring it in as a web portal or as a tab inside Teams. And I'm certainly going to show you how to do that as well. But a good LMS will do these things over here. If we look on our left-hand side, we see things like parent engagement, reporting, outcomes, etc., and other things like attendance, course management, etc. Now you can see some of these things have got an asterisk next to them. It's because Teams and Microsoft 365 is actually going to be doing some of those things as well. But what we do really well that most LMS systems don't sits over here on the right-hand side. So things like secure cloud-based file storage, the productivity apps like Word, PowerPoint, Excel, OneNote, etc. Live engagement, real-time collaboration, video classes, chat, breakout groups, etc. And so when you bring your Microsoft 365 together with your LMS, they should be complementary workspaces, seamlessly integrated, and they should improve the learning environment. So I want you to think about that. I want you to think about bringing Teams together with your LMS and not necessarily just, instead of. However, some schools have decided to make Teams their LMS, but you will need to plug some of those holes that your LMS traditionally does with third-party apps and other things as well. So keep that in mind. So as I share this today, whether you're using Teams as your LMS or whether you're using Teams next to your LMS, that's fine. Okay, we encourage both 100%. Now, Teams is a platform more than it is just a program. Okay, so we see this as a hub where everything is connected. So the first thing I want to point out is, yes, we have the Teams calls and the video calls and the chat, etc., but you also have the Teams themselves. All right, and most people, when they think about Teams, they just think about the sort of the video calling aspect, or many people do, but it's much broader than that, because at the same time, what we do is we bring in dedicated apps for your Microsoft tools. So, dedicated apps for Word, PowerPoint, Excel, OneNote, etc. So you can open those documents and open those files inside Teams. But the other thing that we've done is we've invited third-party providers to build apps for Teams. So just like inside your phone, you've got things like, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, etc. But we've also got dedicated Wikipedia apps or Kahoot or YouTube, etc. So a whole heap, in fact, thousands of third-party apps. So it's not just about a hub for your Microsoft experience, it's a hub for your other tools as well. Now, the other thing that we've done though is we've built in Class Notebook, okay, which we'll have a look at in a moment. We've also got the assignments features, which we're going to have a look at today. And again, you can bring your LMS experience into Teams as well. The other thing I want to remind you of, it is a device agnostic, so you don't need to be on a Windows device, but of course you're going to have the best experience on a Windows device. But we have dedicated apps for your Windows device, your Linux device, and also for your Mac. And then when it comes to your tablet experience, we've got dedicated apps for your Android or iOS tablets, as well as for your phones. Okay, so regardless of where you are. Now, obviously the experience is going to be different, but we try to keep it consistent and we try to keep parity as much as possible, but just be aware that it's going to be different. But nevertheless, what that means is for you as a teacher, but also for your students, Teams is not just on the laptop. The Teams experience can also be happening on tablet devices and also on phones. And of course, we've also got the dedicated browser apps as well. So if you want to find Teams for your device, you haven't got it already, please go to aka.ms/get Teams. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to set up a class team, and I'm going to take you through the basics and I'm going to talk you through some of these things as we go. Remember, fire your questions through as we go, please. Put it in the Q&A, put it in the chat, and we'll respond to those. And also at the end of time, we're going to also talk about that and answer your questions there as well. So here I am in my Microsoft Teams space. Okay, so I'm in a browser, but you could be in the app, that's fine. And I just want to point out to you that I'm in the tile view, okay, the grid view. If you want to change that, you come up here to your settings, okay, and then you can switch view just here, okay, so that will take me into the list view. Okay, and what that does is it puts my teams all along the side here. All right, now I personally do really enjoy the grid view, so I'm going to go back to grid view over here and make that the default that we're using today. So the first thing we're going to do though is we're going to create a team and we're going to create a class team. So you can see over here there's a join or create team button. If you're in the list view, join or create team will be down here at the bottom. Okay, so again, join or create team up here. So I'm going to click on that button there, and then you can see I've got my create team button over here. All right, some of these other things we're going to come back and explore a little bit later, but I'm going to click create team there like that. And you see that there's 4 basic teams that I can create. Today is setting up your class team. So I'm just going to click on my class team button here, and then that's going to start the wizard by which I set up my class team. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to name my team. Now, it's important that you name your team and give it a naming convention that's going to help you not just this year, but in years going on. So what I try and do is I try and put the year first. So I'm going to put 2022, and then I'm going to call this grade 6E. That's just random. I can put a description if I want, all right, and then I would click that and that would start my team from scratch. Now, before I do that, I want to show you that if you've got an existing team that you want to bring a lot of information across from, you can create a team using an existing team as a template. All right, so if you've already got like last year's grade 6 or the year before, and you want to use that as a template, click in here. The wizard is very simple and very straightforward, and you can bring a lot of that information across, save you doing it from scratch. But today we're going to do it from scratch. So I'm just going to click on the next button here. And as that opens up, first thing it does is it asks me, do you want to add people? Now, there's two kinds of people that we can add. We can add students and we can add teachers. Now, teachers will give them full access to the team as the same as you. Okay, so they have full admin privileges just like you. And obviously students come in as members, so they have a lot less control. And we also have the ability to limit what they can and can't do. Now, what I suggest to you though, in setting this up is don't add your students at this stage. Go ahead and add any other teachers if you want, but don't add students. Otherwise, they will get an invitation to an incomplete team. All right. So I would suggest in this point that you skip adding other students. Okay. And then you can see what happens is we've created this team. Okay. And it's now ready for us to start to build. Now, when I come over here to my avatar, you can see there it says a little 2G. I've got a little pencil that appears, so I can click on that and I can choose my avatar, right, for my team, right, which is just a nice way of personalizing it. I've got primary, secondary, post-secondary, and then I've got subjects as well. So there's a whole heap of avatars that I can go in and choose, but I'm actually going to leave that as is for now. But you can go in and personalize that yourself. Now, the first thing I want to take you in to show you is I just want to show you a little bit of the anatomy of teams. I'm assuming that you know a little bit about this, but the first thing we have over here is our activity button. Okay, our activity icon is also going to remind us of anything that we've missed or notify us. It's like notifications inside Facebook or Twitter or something like that. I've got my chat, okay, for personal chat. So you think about when you're in Facebook, you've got your public space, but then you've also got your Facebook Messenger, and so too in Teams, you've got your personal chat. I've got all my teams which live here. I've got the assignments button, which is going to look at all my assignments across all my teams. I've got my calendar as well, which will connect directly to my Outlook calendar. So it will show me everything that's happening in Teams as well as everything that's happening outside of Teams, which is cool. I've got the ability to make calls, and I've got files over here as well. So this is my personal file. So accessing my personal OneDrive, all the Teams files that are accessible to me, etc. Okay, so that's what that looks like. Now over here, we've got things like our Class Notebook tab, all right, so we can be accessing Class Notebook. We'll come back to that in a minute when I'm going to talk about setting that up. We've also got the assignments that live over here. We've also got my grade book and my insights buttons as well. But again, we'll do a little bit of a deeper drill if we have some time into what all that means. The other thing, though, that we've got is we've got channels. OK, so you can see here the general channel has already been created for me. And then I've got the ability to create other channels, which we're going to have a look at in a moment. Over here, we've got the posts, okay, so which is communication inside the general channel, and we've also got the files as well. So this is where I could start to create my files and store my files. But again, I want to come back to that in a minute and talk to you a little bit about that. Over here, we've also got the ability to add tabs, and again, I want to come back to that. Now, when we come into our first start page, so here I am in the general channel down here, you can see that what I've got here is the ability to upload class materials. So what that's basically asking me if I want to do is, do I want to create a read-only folder inside my class team, read-only for the students, but read and write access for me? And what it's done is it's created this read-only folder for me. So it's read-only for students, but it's read and write access for me as a teacher. So that's where I put things where I don't want the students to necessarily be deleting those, etc. Now, the other thing that I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to set up my class notebook. So those of you that know about OneNote Class Notebook will know that it's a phenomenal tool. And what we've done is we've integrated that into the class team. And so when you add students and teachers to your team, then you will automatically add them to the class notebook. So it's really well integrated. So let's click on the Setup Class Notebook button, and it's going to bring me in and help me to set that up. So I'm going to click here, set up a OneNote Class Notebook. And I can bring it from an existing notebook if I've got one that's living in another team, or I've got a private one somewhere that I want to use. But in this case, I'm going to start from scratch. So I'm going to click on blank notebook here. Now, it takes me through what I can do and how to set it up. All right, so you can see here it's going to set up a collaboration space. All right, and a collaboration space is where all the students can edit their content and work together. We've got a content library, which is where I as a teacher can edit the content, but students have only a read-only access. So that's where I will upload all my teaching content. We've got a teacher-only section, which the students won't even know it exists, but that's where I can do my building in OneNote. And then we've also got student notebooks. So each student has their own individual private space. So I click next. And then it asks me, how do I want to set up this class notebook? All right, so it's given me a bit of a default here, but in this case, I'm just going to change this to, I want to have an English section, I want to have a math section, I want to have a science section, and I want to have a humanities section because this is a primary team, and then I might want to add a section as well. I'm going to put in PE, and I'm also going to put in music. All right, so I can put in any sections that I want to do, and then I'm going to go ahead and click create. Now that's going to brew for me as it's building, and I'll be able to come back to that and see it later. All right, now the other thing I guess I want to share with you while we're here is talking about posts and what posts are for. So this is our conversation, okay, inside the channel. So in a moment, we're going to set up multiple channels, but for now, we've just got the one channel. So this is where I can talk to my students and where my students can talk to me and talk to each other. So if I click here on new conversation, you can see here that I could start a new conversation. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here to format because I want to show you some of the cool things that you can do in here. So I can start a new conversation here. I can add a subject if I want it to be. So I could say this is going to be talking about, assessment. Okay, and then I could start to just say blah, 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 put that in for my students. And then that will appear as a chat, all right, in there. And so the students can actually start to reply to that. But I can also come in here and I can start another one, which is actually going to be an announcement. All right, and I can decide whether everyone can reply or not, or just other teachers. I can post that in multiple channels, but I can make this kind of cool because I can choose an illustration. So I'm going to choose that one there. I'm going to say free lunch, no such thing as a free lunch. And then I can put in all my notifications, bits and pieces in here, yada, yada, yada. And then I've made a nice little announcement in there. All right. So every channel that I create has the ability to have conversations and also has the ability to store files. All right. So you can see in here, we've got those class materials, but I can create new folders. All right. So I'm going to create a new folder, which is going to be called assessments. Okay, so that's going to go in there as well. Now that is read and write access. It's only the class materials that locks the students out, but I could go in here if I wanted, and I can create new folders and subdirectories, etc. inside there if I want. All right, now the other thing that I can do is I can add tabs across the top. Okay, so I can add tabs, anything that I want. All right, especially if it's a website. But I can also add things. I can see here I can add YouTube clips and Word documents and Microsoft Forms. And if you've got things like, some of these third-party apps right down here, like Adobe Acrobat or, Wikipedia, all these kinds of things, there's so many of them in there. All right. Now, what I want to show you, though, at this point is I want to show you something really cool. So I want to bring my LMS into my new class team. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the little plus tab here, and anything that is a website can be added as a tab across the top. So in this case, I'm going to click on website here, and I'm going to say this is my LMS, and then I grab my link, all right, which is just your school's LMS link, whatever that happens to be. I'm just using a demo one here of Schoolbox. Then I click save. And there you go. The LMS is now living as a tab. So I can click on my posts, I can click on my files, and then I can click obviously on my LMS as well. So because it's just a web portal, I would just sign in there for the first time, and then just like inside your other browser, it will just remember all your credentials and cookies and other bits and pieces, and you can start to use your LMS inside there as well. Okay. So setting up channels, though, is really easy because we're going to need multiple channels. Okay, so what I do is I come up to this little ellipses here, and I'm going to add a channel. And the first channel I'm going to add is, because this is a team, I'm going to add an English channel because this is a primary team. So that's going to add the channel for me. And then I'm going to add the maths channel. And another one I'm going to add the science channel. Okay, so what that does for my students is it shows them that if they want to talk about or access the files for any specific subject, they would come over here to this channel. All right, so as a teacher or as a student, if we want to talk about English, if we want to access files for English, if we want to look at tabs, etc. for English, this is the channel that we would go to. All right, and so I can add tabs across the top in there as well. We can have conversations about this. I can be storing files, but remembering it's a place for the students to not just access their resources, but also talk to me and talk to each other. And so I can add as many channels as I want over here, okay, specific to the different areas that we're going to be teaching. Now, I might want a personal space for myself that I don't want my students to see, which is fine. So I'm going to add a channel, and I'm going to turn this channel into a private channel, which means that it's only people I invite. And I'm going to call this teacher only, and I'm going to add that in there. And I'm not going to add any members at this stage. And you can see now that that's a locked channel. So the students won't even see it, or the people that aren't invited to that channel won't even see it. But anybody that I want to invite will actually see that channel. Okay, so we've set up our class team to a point. All right, we've set up all our channels over here. We've uploaded our class materials, our locked class materials folder into here as well as creating some others. Remember, if you want to start to upload things into these folders from your local device, come into your folder, click on the upload button here. You can upload individual files, or you can upload individual or whole folders, I should say, are in there as well. Now, remember, we set up that class notebook and we wanted to see how that class notebook is doing. So I come back here, I click on class notebook, and now my class notebook will be built. Now it's living inside the team. Now this is not a class notebook workshop, so we're not going to go into this in depth, but I will say that the class notebook is completely set up. We've got a collaboration space, a content library, a teacher only, and when we start to add our students, all our students will be in here as well. We can add sections and add pages. Basically, it operates like class notebook inside the browser. That's what it looks like inside Teams. But if you want to open it in the browser or take it into your local desktop app, you can do that as well. So you can still have the full OneNote experience, but it's actually living inside the team. Now, the other thing that's really cool about doing it this way is when you set it up inside a team, that means it lives in the school's SharePoint space, not in the teacher's individual space. So the teacher can just hand it on to another teacher by handing on management of the team, rather than having to transfer things across from one OneDrive to another. I'm sure those of you that have been in that place, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Saves you a whole heap of trouble. The next thing I want to share with you is I want to talk to you about managing your teams. Okay, so when I click on the ellipses here, the 3 dots, I come down here, you can see I can manage my team. Now, when I click on manage team, it opens up the management portal, so I can check out my members. I can also be playing around with my channels, but what I want to show you in here is the settings. Now, this is really important. First thing I want to note to draw your attention to again is this is how we change. Remember, we changed the icon. If we wanted to, we can do that in here. But member permissions is really important. Now, inside a class team, the default is set that students aren't able to do a whole lot to change the structure of the team. Now, that's really important. You don't want to spend all this time setting it up and students come back and start deleting it. So these are all unchecked, okay? The ability to create and delete channels and upload apps and all that's all unchecked for students, which means they can't do it. But look at these two here. Do you want to give members the options to delete their messages or the options to edit their messages? Now, if you want to keep kids accountable for what they say and do on Teams, I would suggest that you uncheck that, which means that if they post horrible, mean comments to each other or swearing or whatever, it's going to be there. They can't delete it. So kids become a lot more accountable by unchecking that. If you give them the ability to delete and edit, it means that they can say horrible things and then quickly delete it, and then you can't actually track it. So just keep that in mind as well. The other thing is the ability to @mention, like you are on Facebook and on other social media. So you can actually limit who can @mention the whole team or @mention individual channels, etc. Keep that in mind as well. Down here you've got the fun stuff, so the ability to filter out through Giphies and memes and those kinds of things as well. Being able to set filters for rudeness and that kind of thing is in there. Some of these are controlled by your individual school or individual department, but for most of you, you'll be able to go in there and set that. Obviously, you want to keep it on strict if you're working with kids. You've got your OneNote Class Notebook settings in there, and also the ability to manage tags is in there as well. Okay. So keeping that in mind, how did we find that again? We came in here to manage team. So the ellipses manage team, and then we go in, we can play with the settings in there. It's a good thing to go in and make sure that it's all set up. Now, what we've done is we've set up the class notebook, we've set up the channels, we're ready to start bringing our students in. Okay, now I want to stress that there are multiple ways to bring your students in, and some are easier than others. Now, the first thing I want to point out is there's a thing called School Data Sync, which some of you have got access to and some of you don't because your school or your department has not switched it on. But what School Data Sync allows you to do is it allows your techies in your school to automate the creation of teams and populate them according to the school information system and put the kids in and everything, and it's wonderful and it's fantastic. But many of you don't have access. So there's a couple of different ways that you can add your students to the team when you're ready to go. And I'm going to take you through them. First thing we do is we're going to click on the ellipses and we're going to add members here. Okay, so what you can do is making sure that you're on students, you can actually look up each of the students in your group, right, in your class. So for example, I can look up, oh, Megan's not in there actually. Let's look up Travis. Okay, so I can add Travis, and then I can come back in here and I can add Richard, and I can go through individually finding my students and adding them, or I could add them by email address. And I can already hear you saying, oh my God, Troy, that is so laborious and so, that's going to take me forever. I've got 16 different classes this semester. Oh, how can I do that? For sure. All right, but I just want to show you that it is possible. What you will do instead is coming into your manage team and then into settings, you come down here to the team code, okay? And when I come to team code, I'm going to generate a team code, okay? And now what I've got is I've got this, that looks a bit like COVID. I'm going to reset that one. All right, so I've got a team code here, and I could grab that code, highlight it, and I could send it to my students by email. Okay, so I could say to them, here's this code, this is the code you're going to use to join the team. A better thing that I would do though is when I get my kids all together for the first day of class, I would get them all in the room and I would click here on full screen and I would show them this code. All right, and I would say, here's the code you need, and get them all accessing that code. Now, how do they put the code in? What they do is they come into their team, so they click on the Teams icon. You're going to join or create a team, and then you're going to enter that code in there. So getting them all in the same room, throwing that up on the screen, they all add the code in, bang, they're all members of the team as students. Okay, that is the easiest, by far the easiest way to get them all on if you don't have access to School Data Sync. However, What might happen after a period of time is that code gets handed around to kids that are outside of your class. So after they've all done the code, all right, what I want you to do is come back into management, settings, team code. Okay, you've got the screen there, the code there. Just when you're finished, just remove it. Okay, remove that code. All right, and if you get new students come in, you can generate the code, and one-to-one, you can just hand them a new code, and on they go. All right, but you can actually disable that code after a period of time. Another way that you could add your students is you could actually come up here, get the link to the team. Okay, grab the link. You could send that in an email, and then the kids will actually, I'll show you what it looks like. So if they come in here, we're going to a new in private window. They throw the link in there. I'm going to use the web app. It's going to make them sign in, and then it's going to invite them into the team. All right. Excuse me. And then what will happen is on your pending requests here, you're going to see the students that are actually that have used that link and have joined. But if they use the code, it's not a pending request. They'll be brought straight into the team. All right, so that's your easiest way. Your easiest way is to use the code, get them all in the same room and do it that way. All right, now I guess we're almost out of time. So the last thing I want to share with you before we open up for more Q&A is I just want to show you how to schedule a call. If you're going to be doing remote access, then what I want to show you how to do is just to schedule a call. So here we are. I'm going to set up a call for my students. So let's say it's going to happen at 2 o'clock here on the 18th of January or 3 o'clock. So I click on that and it automatically opens up for me here. All right, so I can now schedule a call. So I can add the call. So let's say this is Maths 101. I can add the students by name, but a better thing to do is add a channel. Okay, so in this case, it's going to be my 2022 grade 6E. I'm going to put it in the maths channel. Okay, I can set the time for that call, etc. Get it all up and running, and then I just send it. And now what will happen is it will sit in the students' calendars, and it will also sit in the team's calendar as well. I misspelled maths there, but that's how we schedule those calls. Okay. So grab today's slides on the link here, aka.ms/eduday setup. That's where I want you to go and grab the slides, because when you grab those slides, there's this really good slide that you can access as a resource in here, and it's actually going to show you all the things that you can do with Teams for these major 4 categories. Flexible, right? Things that make it flexible, things that make it personalized, things that make it engaging, and things that you can use Teams to make things much more inclusive as well. So that's in there as well. I also want to invite you to connect with me on social media. So there I am on Twitter, there I am on LinkedIn, there I am on Facebook as well. Following me, connecting with me in these spaces means that I will do a lot of the work for digging up the latest, greatest articles and resources and other things in the education space. You'll know it's me if you do a search for Troy Waller on these platforms, because you'll see this little graphic here as well. So on that note, I want to say thank you very much. Remember, you can access this video after EduDay, but also my colleague Stephen Payne is doing a Teams advanced session. So that's a really good follow on. It's being run live concurrently with this one, but afterwards you'll be able to access it on YouTube, so you can get sort of the next steps after, you know, this sort of setup that you've been with me a part of today. So thank you very much for doing this. Thank you very much for being a part of this. I hope you have an amazing rest of your EduDay and an amazing rest of your holidays. Enjoy yourself, and I'll see you online.